And we're kicking off today with SmackDown, as LA Knight has proven himself on the mic time and time again, and this week's show proved no different. Not everyone is a fan of Knight though, with Kevin Nash calling him an absolute ripoff of The Rock earlier this year, and Knight had some choice words on SmackDown aimed at Big Daddy Cool. During his promo, Knight remarked, "If I were a complete moron, I'd say look at the adjective, play, but I'm not, so I'll say look at the verb," which may have gone over the heads of some fans. The line was referencing an infamous WCW Nitro promo during Nash's introduction to Eric Bischoff by Scott Hall as one-third of the Outsiders in June 1996, in which he said WCW was where the big boys play, and mistakenly called play the adjective. It's worth stating that Nash would apologize for his comments about Knight after receiving criticism from fans, though his apology did include the caveat that he hasn't seen much of Knight on TV. If Nash tuned in this week, he'll have seen the popular star defeat Austin Theory despite efforts of Grayson Waller to interfere in another big win for LA Knight. Knight was recently listed as the #1 babyface on SmackDown, and it turns out the former Impact World Champion is also among the top merchandise movers in the company. Fightful Select reports that Knight was just behind John Cena and Cody Rhodes for merch sales at Payback, and with that so far, most of his sales have come from WWE Shop and Fanatics. With that said, Knight's connection with the fans has led to more merch of his being at WWE events, and with the numbers from Payback, expect that trend of more merch to only continue. 27 years on, and Kevin Nash's botched promo still remains in the minds of fans, and what do you think of Knight's use of that line on this week's show? Sound off in the comments. Thanks to winning the Undisputed Tag Team titles at Payback, the Judgement Day were able to appear on SmackDown, and the heat for Dominic proved to be louder than ever. The faction's promo would be interrupted by the Brawling Brutes, setting up a match between Finn Balor and Damian Priest against Ridge Holland and Butch, all while Pretty Deadly watched backstage. With Elton Prince making use of a wheelchair for his arm injury, the match saw Balor and Priest get the win, and after some post-match taunting by Dirty Dom, the Street Profits arrived on the scene. Along with Lashley, the trio made it clear that they have the Judgment Day in their sights, and Lashley and the Profits could be adding a fourth member to their group. It's been rumored that Bianca Belair's return to TV could see her side with this faction, and the EST could certainly be the answer to the Rhea Ripley problem and set up a title match. There's no shortage of great matches that could be made as part of this feud, and we're excited to see where this goes next between two very impressive factions. It was earlier this year that Jimmy Uso played a role in Jey Uso leaving the Bloodline, but since then, Jey has left SmackDown for Raw, and many believe Jimmy wants back in with the faction. During SmackDown, Jimmy spoke with Paul Heyman backstage, and while Jimmy said he's in the Bloodline, the special counsel made it clear that this decision will come from Roman Reigns. Heyman asked Jimmy to take care of AJ Styles, and the wise man will handle his business with the Bloodline. And later on, Heyman was seen speaking to Styles. When the Phenomenal One grabbed Heyman by the throat, he was attacked by Jimmy, and the segment would end with Heyman calling Roman Reigns. As for the Styles-Uso match, it was the former WWE champion who got the win, which comes after quite an unfortunate stretch of time for the veteran. This is technically Styles' first singles win in nearly a month, with his previous win being against Karrion Kross on the August 11th SmackDown. What was interesting though is that Styles was annoyed at the OC for not having his back when Jimmy attacked him, in the first sign of tensions within the group we've seen. Styles will no doubt be livid that the OC weren't around after his match when he was ambushed by Damian Priest in what could prove to be the start of a major change for the faction. John Cena news now, as the 16-time WWE World Champion wasn't on this week's episode of SmackDown, as he was busy competing at the Superstar Spectacle in India. In his first match since WrestleMania, Cena and Seth Rollins defeated Imperium's Ludwig Kaiser and Giovanni Vinci, but it won't be long until fans see Cena on SmackDown again. During the latest episode of SmackDown, Austin Theory faced LA Knight in singles competition with Grayson Waller on commentary, and the Australian announced Cena's return for next week. More specifically, Waller said that Cena would be appearing on the Grayson Waller Effect next week, and this announcement was later made official by WWE. These two have shared the screen before, with Waller confronting Cena at WWE Money in the Bank in July, which earned the cocky Australian an AA for his troubles. As for what the pair will say and do next week, only time will tell, but don't be surprised to see the duo get physical once more on Friday Night SmackDown. We mentioned that Cena was at the Superstar Spectacle, where he and Rollins picked up a hard-fought victory, but for this match, it wasn't just the superstars who were ready to fight. Before the match, Cena made his entrance to a great response from the fans and threw his shirt into the crowd, which led to a fight between members of the WWE Universe. Several fans could be seen arguing over who caught the shirt, as with this being the shirt of one of the greatest of all time as well as WWE's first India event in years, the shirt was quite the memento. Cena didn't just wrestle during his time in India, as when speaking to Sportskeeda, Cena was asked if he saw Roman Reigns as his successor in WWE and had a near instantaneous response. He said, "In my perspective, I think Roman Reigns is the greatest of all time." It's quite the response from John, who will return to SmackDown next week and will continue to appear throughout September and October amid the ongoing WGA strike. Fans will next see Cena on September 15th at the Ball Arena in Denver, Colorado, where hopefully a fight won't break out because of his shirt. Shortly before this year's Superstar Spectacle, Becky Lynch disclosed she wouldn't be able to make it to the show due to a passport issue, which left Zoe Stark without an opponent. It's now been revealed that WWE veteran Natalya stepped up and pulled double duty, first wrestling Stark at the event before going on to challenge Rhea Ripley for the Women's World title. Despite the Natalya Ripley match being advertised ahead of the show, it was stated during the show that the match with Stark was a #1 contenders match, with the winner facing the champ. Even with Natalya's efforts and the talents of Stark, fans weren't overly interested, with various accounts confirming that CM Punk chants broke out during their match. This isn't anything new, with WWE crowds chanting for CM Punk before, and it shows that Punk has had an impact on the wrestling world, even outside of the United States. As for Natalya, Road Dogg would thank the Canadian for stepping in and helping out, and we'll have to see if she'll be rewarded on TV for her efforts during the Superstar Spectacle. From the moment CM Punk was fired from AEW, rumors sprouted that he could be joining WWE, and Punk himself reportedly tried to get rehired prior to signing with AEW. There's plenty of superstars today who have never faced CM Punk, including the Judgement Day's Finn Balor, who wouldn't say no to a showdown with the self-proclaimed voice of the voiceless. To be fair, the undisputed WWE Tag Team Champion explained his position on the matter when speaking during the Ringer Wrestling show, as he added, "I'd be interested in wrestling a broomstick if someone is going to pay me money. Money talks." While Balor is open to a match, some top superstars have told management that they're against the idea of Punk being rehired by WWE, so we'll have to see what future, if any, Punk has in the ring. It was on a recent episode of SmackDown that Edge faced and defeated Sheamus in what was confirmed as the final match on his current contract with WWE. At the time, Edge said he was unsure about his wrestling future, and there was a belief among AEW talent that he'd be All Elite soon, but that was before this week's episode of SmackDown. WWE unveiled a new intro for SmackDown, where the Hall of Famer was prominently featured, implying he could be sticking with WWE for this final stretch of his career after all. This was the first time the intro was updated this year, and stars such as the late Bray Wyatt and Hit Row have now been removed, and every other star on the intro is a full-time WWE superstar. It just seems odd that WWE would change the intro and make sure to include Edge if he is leaving WWE within a matter of weeks, and especially if he's intending to join the company's chief rival. Edge celebrated 25 years since his WWE debut recently, and his career could indeed end as a superstar, especially if this week's SmackDown is a sign of things to come. But what do you think? Should the Hall of Famer end his in-ring career with WWE, or should he try his hand elsewhere, such as AEW? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. More from SmackDown, as after this week's show went off the air, the fans were treated to 2 dark matches, with the first seeing the LWO's Rey Mysterio and Santos Escobar face the Street Profits. The Profits wrestled in full suits for this match, but it was the LWO who picked up the victory after Mysterio hit a double 619 on his opponents and pinned Montez Ford for the win. The second dark match saw Cody Rhodes picking up a victory over Dirty Dom using the Cody Cutter and Crossroads to end the match, and after the bout, Cody cut a promo thanking the crowd. In June, AEW fired producer BJ Whitmer after he was arrested in Boone County, Kentucky, and charged with strangulation and burglary. In an update, Sean Ross Sapp reports that Whitmer has now officially been charged in connection with his domestic violence arrest, and a pre-trial hearing is scheduled for October 4th. Whitmer was said to have backstage heat within AEW prior to his arrest, and will make sure to continue following his case for further updates. In recent months, there's been plenty of talk about Drew McIntyre's contract, and despite returning to TV at Money in the Bank, the Scottish Warrior has not inked a new deal as some had thought. Now WWE has more time to work on signing him, as PW Insider reports that due to the time off he had earlier this year, Drew's contract has been extended and he'll be around until WrestleMania 40. Previously, it was only known that his deal was up before WrestleMania, and while WWE are said to be focused on the Endeavor deal right now, they'll have a few more weeks to reach a new deal. Now, Devon Dudley is a veteran of the wrestling world and will go down in history as one of the all-time greatest tag team wrestlers, having held gold in WCW, WWE, TNA, and other promotions. Devon will also go down in history as one of the most decorated black wrestlers in history, but when speaking to Good Karma Wrestling, he was asked about his experiences with racism and said, "I remember coming into certain locker rooms and there were certain people that didn't care if it got out how they were treating you. There was a prominent figure in WWE, I should say that he was Office, that basically told me that he didn't like me because I was black. 2 occasions he told me. Bubba was there on one of them, and Bubba was there on the second one along with Paul Heyman, Tommy Dreamer, and Spike. To this day, I have no respect, nor do I like this individual. I'm not going to go and put him on blast right now, but I don't care for him, so I just stay away from him. I just know that we've come a long way. I'm not going to sit here and cry over something that might have happened 10 years ago. I just move on and make the best of it. Look at my career. I have nothing to be sad about. I have nothing to have any remorse about it. Bubba and I have become the greatest tag team of our era." Of course, nobody should be treated worse by anyone for the color of their skin, and we can only hope that this disgusting practice one day ends in wrestling and in the world. Speaking of legendary tag teams, the Dudleys were often at war with the Hardy Boys, but despite being 2 massive stars, neither Matt nor Jeff were a part of last week's All Out. During his Extreme Life podcast, though, Matt disclosed that he and Jeff were at All Out, as there were talks of a match featuring the two, but that ended up not happening. The Hardys were at one point also considered for AEW All In, before Jeff's travel restrictions stemming from his legal issues meant that wouldn't be happening in Wembley. Matt and Jeff are beloved by fans, many of whom have been disappointed to see neither Hardy at All In or All Out, but there was at times plans for the pair to get into the ring. Last month, the wrestling community lost Wyndham Rotunda, and in response, Tony Khan has allowed AEW talent time off in order to attend the funeral of the man known as Bray Wyatt. Speaking on his podcast, Matt Hardy revealed that Khan did more than give talent time off, but also offered a private jet in order to ensure everyone who wished to attend could make it to the service. Matt said that the service was tough to get through, and that his heart is shattered for Wyatt's family, and said that it felt like the entire WWE roster had come to give their respects to Wyndham. Hardy said the large turnout proved just how loved Rotunda was, and said it was nice to see so many people come together, though it was unfortunate that it was under these circumstances. Speaking about Khan, Matt said he was very grateful for the AEW president's efforts, which were definitely appreciated and shows how good-hearted of a human being Tony Khan is. Wyatt and Hardy would feud and team in WWE, even holding the Raw Tag Team titles at one point, and our thoughts remain with the Rotunda family, his fiancée JoJo, and his children at this time. Back to SmackDown, which saw Shotzi and Charlotte Flair defeat Io Sky and Bayley, and while it looked like Damage Control were going to trash Shotzi's tank during their entrance, that didn't exactly happen. Instead, Bayley stomped on the seat a couple of times in a rather underwhelming spot, though I guess it shows that tanks are built to last. The match once again saw Shotzi get the pin over Bayley, and while it's good to see Shotzi getting a push, The decision for this match to happen at all did raise some questions. It wasn't too long ago that Shotzi was chasing Bayley with hair clippers, taunting her and sending threatening message, but that rage seems to have gone, and now they're having basic tag matches. Nevertheless, Shotzi and Flair got the win, albeit thanks to a distraction by Asuka, who after the match had a face-off with Io Sky in the ring. Backstage, Io would challenge Asuka for a championship match, which will happen in 2 weeks' time, and we have to give props for WWE booking Sky as a heel willing to defend her title. And we're ending with the superstar spectacle, as the fans in India were treated to a surprise appearance by WWE Hall of Famer the Great Khali, who told the fans that he feels he has one more match left in him. Khali hasn't wrestled since the 2018 Greatest Royal Rumble, and his final singles match for WWE was an October 2014 loss to Rusev, and we'll have to see if he gets this one final match in a WWE ring.